Hi friends, it's Terry Stewart, Independent Stampin' Up demonstrator. Welcome to my Stamping is Fun channel and this edition of Vlog where we celebrate calendars. So I've made a super cute, super quick little desk calendar that you can put on your desk or give to a friend for their desk. So let's get started. So my project features the Forever Blossoms stamp set, and I really like this stamp set. It's got these lovely floral images, like dogwoods, got these really pretty fonts, leaves, little buds, and great sentiments. Friend, love, always and forever. And this is the one we're going to be using today. Cherish every moment of this day. It's a calendar, so I thought that was appropriate. And then the cardstock I'm using is Pear Pizzazz and a scrap of black. I have some repositional label paper, and if you don't have that, you might have a sticky note that has that the whole note is repositionable on the back. And then I'm using this lovely pattern from the Expressions in Ink DSP. So this DSP pack, let me bring this in and show you, is a specialty pack. And each of the patterns on the front have gold elements to it. This one, you have polished pink with white and gold. This is a floral pattern that has gold elements sprinkled throughout. This is the one we're going to be using today. It's kind of a watercolor floral image, and again with the gold elements to it. Look at this beautiful veining of gold with the shaded spruce, and then this one more veining, and then you have this paper that has gold stripes. And then the reverse side of the papers are more watercolor elements. This is pale papaya, shaded spruce, more floral elements, but without the gold. It's just gorgeous, gorgeous paper. It's probably one of my most favorite papers. There's a Pear Pizzazz. I almost wanted to use that in my project. I just couldn't make it fit in. And then this one was some white and polished pink and pale papaya. This is one of the best DSP packs, probably my most favorite ever. And this is in the annual catalog. Let me bring in my paper trimmer. Before I do that, I want to let you know that I'm going to be talking in imperial measurements as I cut and score, but if you check out my blog, stampinghair.blogspot.com, I will post all the metric measurements. So here is my trimmer, paper trimmer. Now I'm going to score this paper, this cardstock, so I can get 2 calendars. I can make 2 calendars, keep one and give one as a gift. So I will need to swing out my arm for this. So on the long side, I'm going to score this at 4 inches, 8 inches, 8 3/4, 9 1/4, 9 3/4, and then 10 1/2. Now that that is scored, I'm going to cut it in half. So this is a full sheet of cardstock. I've scored it on the long edge, and now I'm going to cut it in half on the short edge. And for imperial, that would be 4 1/4. Again, visit my blog for the metric measurements. So now I am able to make 2 calendars. Now I'll be making 1 calendar for this presentation. The other cuts, I have a pair a piece of pear pizzazz, and I'm going to cut this at 2 inches by 2 inches, and this is going to hold my calendar printout. 2 inches by 2 inches. And then, as I said before, I have a piece of black cardstock that is a scrap. And here's my repositionable paper. And I'm going to cut this at 1.5 inches by 1.5. It's a square. I think it's already at 1.5 the other direction. Yes, so that's perfect. And now my DSP, I'm going to cut 3.5 inches. And I need 2 pieces of my DSP. So 3.5 inches. And then on the other side, it needs to be 3 3/4 inches. So there's my first piece, and the same for my second piece. Now, these do have a back side, and I purposely want this one with the colors for my back side. So this one is just white, so I'm going to go with this piece for my back side. The last thing that I need to cut is my calendar. I went online and found printables, free printables, calendars. And again, check out my blog and I'll have the link to this particular 2021 calendar. So I printed it out to fit to the page. And I don't know if you can see, there's a light border, and I'm going to cut along that border just to trim it up, and then I will make a more precise cut once I have it cut out. And I'm making a November calendar. So this is the month I'm going to be cutting out now. If I was going to give this for a gift, I would cut all the months out, but just for this project, I'll show you how for 1 month. And I want to get it, when I cut it, I want it close to the Saturday, that last row. So we'll just cut this. And then I'm going to rotate it and kind of do the same where I'm just cutting close to the columns of days, the dates. But I don't want to cut them. So close, but not too much. And then the final, just right up to the last row. And you'll notice it's about 1 3/4 inches is kind of the size that I want to cut it to. And that's my calendar. So I'm going to bring my bone folder in and fold on these score lines. The first one I'll do, and then for the rest of the score lines, I want to do a valley. I want to make the second one a valley. The middle, the next one is going to be a mountain, and then I'm back to the valleys. And you'll see why I'm doing it in this order. So this is going to be the base of my stand-up calendar. So when it's in this position, we have the valley, valley, mountain, valley, valley. And it can adhere that flap on the inside, and this becomes your base. So once we have that done, now we can start assembling. So I am going to make the front of my piece here, and where I tuck in this flap, this is going to be the back side of my calendar. So this is the front, and this is the back. So the front piece, I'm going to put my DSP like that. Bring in my liquid glue to adhere this. And this paper is gorgeous with these very glitzy gold elements. And then the back piece, I'm going to use this. Now there is a right way, since this is 3 3/4 by 3.5. You do want to make sure that you get it centered appropriately so you have an equal size border. If I put it on the wrong way, you'll notice that there's the border on right and left much larger than the border on the top. So make sure when you're adhering this that you do get it in the right position so you have an equal border around your DSP piece. That looks really nice. And we can adhere our base by folding. If you fold on this second score line, fold it up, and then it'll match perfectly to put glue on this little tab. So I'm just going to run a thin bead of glue. I don't want it to squish out, so I'm just going to put a little bit of glue there. Hold that while I bring over the back. And then just hold it for a few seconds while the glue activates and begins to hold. Then you can adjust your pinch here so you can get your flat base, and you can see how it's going to stand. So this will be the front side, as I mentioned, and this will be the back side. I'll layer my calendar on my cardstock, and then, but before I do that, there's a few more steps though. And the first one being that I want to stamp my sentiment from a Forever Blossoms, cherish every moment of this day. And I've mounted that on my clear block. And I'm going to emboss with white embossing powder. So with my Versamark, I'm going to ink my stamp up. Make sure I get the Versamark on all my words. And stamp right in the middle of my scrap. Press to make sure the ink transfers about 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, and that should be enough. And I'm going to bring in a scrap of copy paper, and here's my white embossing powder. Now where I've stamped with the Versamark, it's a thick ink and it will not dry quickly, which is why you want to use it for embossing, so there's time to get the embossing powder on it. And then just tap off any excess. Because I used a piece of scrap paper, now I can transfer my embossing powder back into the container. So there's no waste there. And here's a little trick with a clothespin. Hold this scrap of paper while I bring in my heat tool. Now, heat tool kind of looks like a hairdryer, but is not. It can reach 450 degrees Fahrenheit, very, very hot. It will burn you, which is why I have the clothespin. Now I'm going to turn this on. It's a little bit noisy, so bear with me. And I just want to heat the powder until it turns glossy. And so right now it kind of looks like a vanilla color or off-white. It will turn white once I put the heat gun on it. So I'm getting it close, but not touching. And once it turns white, I'm going to move it because you can burn the powder if you leave the heat gun on it, heat tool on it for too long. So here, now you can see it's kind of shiny. That's the embossing powder has been melted by the heat tool. Now I'm going to let this set for a minute just to make sure that it cools appropriately. And I'm going to work on my calendar. So this will go here, but then if you're going to do the next December or even go into January, well, what to do? You don't want to replace this all the time. So I came up with this idea of using repositional paper. So I've cut this square, as I said, 1.5 by 1.5, and I'm going to put some glue on this piece. So I'm going to glue this down. This is just the covering to that backside of the repositionable. So we can lift this apart, take the cover off of it, and center this on my Pear Pizzazz cardstock. And then I can take off this remaining cover. And I want to make sure that this adheres to my cardstock. So I'm going to set this aside and let the glue activate before placing my calendar piece over that. Now with this, I'm going to trim away the excess with my paper. So I'm fussy cutting and leaving just maybe 1/8 of an inch around the letters. And then I'm going to cut through the sentiment. So I'm going to break them apart. It's too long to go across. Well, I didn't want to use it in that way. So I'm going to, between the moment, these moment and of, I'm going to snip the phrase apart and then continue my fussy cutting. I'm keeping my right hand at the same angle and then steering my scissors, the piece, with my left hand. That part. And now the remaining part. Again, about 1/8 of an inch. And trimming away around the remaining phrase. So I plan to put this phrase at the top of my calendar centered towards the bottom. And that's how it's going to look. So for this piece, I'm going to want to raise it up with some dimensionals. So I'll put dimensionals in each corner. And then a small piece in the center. Oh, my repositional paper is working. Move these dimensional covers. And then, as I said, I plan to, I'm centering it right and left, and just a smidge at the bottom. And then these words, dry fit them real quickly, and putting them at an angle. And I'm trying to, when I dry fit them, my goal is to keep them on the DSP, keep both at the same slant, and I'm trying to keep the same amount of distance from this first piece of the last piece on the right. So the same distance between the DSP and the words, and on this side is that same distance. I'll put a thin bead of glue, and then place this down, and then the next piece, thin bead of glue, and then, as I said, same slant. Try to match up the distance on this end as this was on the left. All right, and then the final piece, bring in my November calendar, and it was cut bigger than my repositionable paper, so it should fit just right over top. And pinch these bottom pieces, and then you have the calendar, beautiful from the back and from the front. And then you can replace the calendar when December rolls around. Until then, let me put my November calendar back on, centering it. So here's November. Let me show you the one I made, my prototype. Here's October. I pulled this October up so many times. It's getting a little ratty around the edges, but there you go. So you can see what the front looks like, what the back looks like. And then you can give these as gifts. I think they would be an excellent small thank you gift, or to a dear friend, or to a colleague at work. Thank you so much for joining me and watching my vlog. Make sure you visit the other vlog participants. In the description below, there is a link. Visit my blog with all the imperial and metric measurements, also found on my blog, and the link is below in the description. Subscribe and like my channel so I can bring you even more fun projects. And until next time, remember, stamping is fun. Bye.